So, guys, this is my review for Hajime no Ippo Season 2, Episode 19. With that, guys, let's dive right into this review of this episode. So, we see here that some things went down per Episode 19. Some very key things happened here in this episode. But it was definitely, I like the fact that we saw Takamura just like really just like truly look to focus to get to meet the weight requirement for his fight. And it was hard to watch him go through this just because it's just something that he's not used to doing. We know that Taka lives a specific life. He does things in a specific routine, even with how his character is. And, he really knows that this is what he needs to do. He needs to be able to definitely just like take things a little bit more serious, a whole lot more serious. Because again, we know that Taka, he's more of a jokester. He even we see him be a little bit more serious in some of his fights, but sometimes he can still be a jokester too during his fights. But specifically here, we see that he literally is trying to get to basically meet that weight. But again, mentally, it is having a huge effect on him. But we know that I honestly believe that he was going to meet the weight. I would have been very just like taken aback if it hadn't he not met it and then had to figure something else out or probably wait. But I knew that he was going to meet the weight requirement. It just was just getting him to that point. But once he did, it was cool. But then after that, because again, he was also struggling in that sparring fight at the beginning of the episode too, because that also had an effect too. So after that, once we get to the to when they had the conference, the press conference championship, just prior to, that's when I knew things were going to get interesting. It usually always happens in a lot of these types of heavy on championship fights where there's some type of drama going on. There's usually not where, like sometimes there's where fighters, they can just, show respect towards each other and no drama happens. But then there's a lot of other times where there definitely has drama in it. And of course, it definitely happened here. So, with their press conference, with, what Hawk, when Hawk was there and he was trying to be asked questions and by the men of the room, and nobody was getting responses out of him. But once, if I remember, because my brain is like shot as far as some of the characters' names. So I believe it's Miyasa. When she stood up, the reporter, she stood up, and you can correct me on the name because I forgot it. Please forgive me. But when she stood up and asked him the question, he, Hawk, that's when he literally woke up, brightened up, and was more talkative. But of course, with that happening, that's when things got real. He literally was very disrespectful to the Japanese culture, definitely to the women. He basically saying that like he said when they first met in the locker room, he brings it back of like I want to be able to do some specific things to the women of your culture, this, that, and the third. Just very disrespectful to the Japanese culture. I know that I said on my reaction, like this American, he's a bum, to us Americans, and how he carries himself, and once we see that, of course, a lot of of course everybody in the audience, news reporters and everybody, they're just like really upset. And then of course when he hits Chief, that of course set Taka off. And of course, again, Fuji did definitely tell Akoe and them to just like, look, we're gonna need you there. They were thinking that they didn't need to be, but there was a reason why, and I was definitely very thankful that they were there, because if they weren't there, things would have went off even a bit more and would have caused some issues for Taka walking into this fight. He probably would have maybe got suspended had he attacked Hawk before the fight. But because they were there, they were to hold him back. But it was definitely a struggle to hold him back. But I understand, that's his manager. They built such a bond with each other over the years. You don't do something like that. You don't be too, that you don't be disrespectful to somebody like that. And I'm glad that they were there to be able to hold him back. But once that all of that occurred, then we had a very interesting conversation between Ippo and Taka here, where Ippo made that what was it, that promise. Me personally, like, if I'm gonna keep a promise, if I'm gonna make a promise, I'm making it for a specific reason. I felt like Ippo was trying to, like, because he has high hopes for Taka. He of course, Taka is a mentor of his, and he wants to see Taka get this win and win this championship. We already know that Taka does too, but I feel like you don't want to make some type of a promise like that to Taka, because I feel like that's putting even more weight on his shoulders, because we see that Taka, he wasn't able to sleep well because of him knowing that there are others out there that are telling him, you're not just doing this fight for yourself, but you're doing this for all of Japan. That's a lot of weight to put on one man's shoulders, even in the sports and even in the entertainment world. So for Taka to really just sit back and be thinking upon this stuff, it's gotten real for him, and I understand, because this is a huge fight for his career. So for Ippo to make that promise, I felt like he shouldn't have, because again, him walking to his own fight, you're definitely expecting him to win, but what if he didn't win? He did struggle, though. There was things that Chief came down on him after the fight, like, you were sluggish, blah blah blah, this, that, and the third. I understand that too. It's like, you making that promise, you're putting weight on yourself to go out here and prove that you can do this, so that Taka can actually go out here and actually get this win, because you want to see him win. But you don't make that type of a promise to your friend like that, because again, you're putting weight on both of each other, but you're applying way more weight on Taka's shoulders that there's already there. So it's just that certain situation. So with Ippo doing this here in this fight, and keeping to the promise, yeah, cool, great, you kept it. So with that, I enjoyed episode 19 for season 2, and be on the lookout for my reaction and review to episode 20 to come. But let me know your thoughts below. What did y'all think of this video? Leave some comments in the comment section below. Let's talk about some things, and I will hopefully talk to you next time with more Hajime no Ippo videos. Peace, guys.